Welcome to the Essential Skills for Humaning podcast, where we explore the fundamental abilities and insights that make us better humans. Here's your host, Christina Eanes.
Hi, everyone. Christina Eanes here. I'm happy to welcome Dr. Albert Bramante for today's episode. Welcome, Albert.
Thank you so much, Christine, for having me.
Well, before we get into the topic, which I'm sure a lot of people want to hear about, on conquering imposter syndrome and unlocking our authentic confidence, can you share a little bit about your background with our listeners?
Sure. So I've been a talent agent in New York City for the past 21 years. I represent actors for film, TV theater, commercial print, and voiceover. I also have a doctorate in psychology, so I've been also a psychology professor for the same amount of time as well. And I love what I do. Uh, for my doctoral dissertation, I focused on self-defeating behavior in performing artists, which one of the major things that came up was imposter syndrome, fear of success, mindset issues came up. So that's sort of like where I'm really comfortable to speak in those spaces. And then, which I'll talk about later, but I did turn it into a book.
Nice. Yeah, we'll definitely want to hear about that book. Yeah, and imposter syndrome is very common for humans, which is why I think this is perfect for essential skills for humaning. Can we start with defining it as we're using it today?
Well, there's a lot of definitions floating around for
Right.
imposter syndrome. I mean, the standard dictionary definition is feeling like a fraud, feeling like you're not being authentic, you're going to be found out. So what can often come up is, especially when we're in a challenging profession, and there's nothing more challenging than show business as far as the profession is concerned, because it's ultra competitive and it's overly saturated. So in that space, when you're overly saturated, you're going to receive a lot more no's than yeses, no matter how talented or gifted of a performer you are. And after a time, that's going to start wearing you down and wearing down the psyche over time. And that can cause you to start to self-doubt and start to be second guessing yourself. And one of the, as I was really going down kind of like the rabbit hole of studying imposter syndrome and fear of success and self-sabotage. The one thing I found, one of the biggest, I think, misconceptions is that, imposter syndrome, one of the myths is that it only affects a small number of people. It affects
No.
everybody,
Yeah.
including high-functioning business people, CEOs, business owners, entrepreneurs, really face this on a almost a daily basis, because it has a lot to do with there's a lot of challenges being a business owner,
Absolutely.
and really also with actors, they're the CEOs of their own company, so technically that would classify them in the same category as entrepreneurs. That would classify them as CEOs and one in that aspect. So there's a lot of loneliness that often comes with being a business owner. A lot more responsibilities. I mean, there are advantages, of course, being your own boss, but at the same time, there's also some costs attached.
Yeah.
And so it can, when you add all of that up, there can be that moment of, self-doubt, which comes in, like, are you doing the right decisions? And you start second guessing yourself sometimes. Am I making the right sale today? Am I making the right decision? And you start second guessing your decisions. And then you can get what we call decision paralysis, where it's you don't make any decisions at all now. And this can lead to procrastination.
Mm-hmm.
And you ask, one of the biggest problems that most entrepreneurs face is the idea of procrastination. Or what's related to it, almost like its distant cousin, perfectionism.
Oh, yeah.
I need to be perfect. I need to make that perfect post. I need to make that perfect article. I need to make that perfect pitch before I reach out and do something, and what I found, the two P's, which again, procrastination, perfectionism, are very related. And the unfortunate thing is nothing often gets done. And then because nothing gets done, that also fuels our self doubt and like, what are we doing? Why am I wasting my time? And so one of the, I guess, sort of like what we can start to do is start encouraging ourselves and everyone else to take action.
Yeah. Actually, before we get into strategy, can we go a little bit deeper into the conditions? So, I mean, whether you're a CEO, an aspiring actor, or an entry level professional, what I'm hearing is different ways, different conditions that can create this. One, perhaps a lot of rejection, maybe negative feedback, getting pushed outside our comfort zone, maybe taking on a new role. What are some of those other conditions that can create where we feel like we need to either procrastinate or go into perfection mode?
Well, you kind of mentioned really too on being outside your comfort zone. Fear. I think fear is the biggest factor. Um, fear of failing, fear of looking bad, or feel of messing up. But there's also another fear of success.
Mm.
Now, this is not a fear that's public or conscious, because you talk about fear of success, and mostly anybody who's listening will say, "What are you talking about? How would you have fear of success? Why would success be scary?" And it can be if we unpack it, because there's a whole host of things that are happening. There, when you are successful, that means change. Your life is going to change. The world around you is going to change. And so over time, that can really lead to feeling like you're not worth it, and um, you're not worthy of that change, or it's really just uncomfortable. Because as human beings, we crave and we love comfort. It's the
Yes.
biggest addiction. So change it's like fear of change, and then of course the fear of failure. So that would be the biggest thing, is just not getting started, staying inside our comfort zone, and being stagnant. And that's where sometimes we have to really come to the crossroad. Do we want to be comfortable? Or do we want to grow?
Yeah.
Because very often we can't have both. We can't have it both ways. If we want to grow, we're going to have to be uncomfortable, and it's going to be scary a lot of times initially in the beginning, especially when you're making a new change or doing something different, and
Oh,
you're not used to it, and you
absolutely.
have fear of the unknown. Yes. So I would say the biggest factor is fear as to
Nice.
why this would happen.
Okay. So then let's get into some strategies. I know one of them would be awareness of those the conditions that are creating it, right? The other one I think that is very helpful for people is knowing that everybody else goes through it. It's not just us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it could be that CEO. It could be even people that own larger companies,
Mm-hmm.
and that on paper look extremely successful and having it all together,
Yeah.
and they're dealing with it every day.
Mm-hmm.
Is sometimes struggling getting out of bed, second guessing themselves. So the first thing is normal. Number one. Two, it everybody goes through it, no matter And some people shall say I never have it, which I know you're lying when somebody says they don't. You're lying to yourself. But the next thing is to be okay in that uncomfortableness.
Mm.
Be okay about it. Almost like be comfortable with discomfort. And it's kind of like a double phrasing there, but that would be the whole thing, is be comfortable in the uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
So take some small actions, whether it's, going live on social media, whether it's giving a speech at a local, Rotary Club or even doing Toastmasters, where you're just getting some practice of speaking, going to networking events, especially for the introverts. That can be scary, going to a networking event. But one of the strategies we all need as entrepreneurs is connection, because as I said earlier, it's a lonely field sometimes to be working for ourselves. So we need connection, and so we should all be part of networking groups for entrepreneurs, and or going to networking events both in person and on virtually too. So, but the important thing is connecting with other people, and that's another strategy I feel is so important, is connecting with others, because when you can share some sort of even the fears that you're facing, and again, you're not alone.
Yeah.
And then you could kind of coax and coach each other through it. Um, so that's the biggest thing is as far as strategy, connection. And as entrepreneurs, what I would suggest is don't be afraid to network with your your direct competitors, because a lot of times they can really offer some great feedback and help along the way.
Absolutely.
Um,
That's just great advice for any human networking
yeah,
with others. Yeah.
networking with others, even in your own field, even though that on paper may be a competitor, but it's still a great way. Even as talent agents, I have friends that are other agents that, even though technically day by day we're competition, but we still look out for each other at the end of the day. And that's where you get mentorships too. Is like, okay, let's say you have someone in your field that may be much more advanced. Buy them for a cup of coffee. Say, hey, can I, have a meeting, and how can I help you in the next 50 minutes? So don't be afraid to ask for help. One of the things we kind of were talking about before the recording is, when you ask for help, have something to give in return.
Mm-hmm.
When you ask for something, like, don't just ask, like, hey, can I have 10 minutes of your time? Well, that's great and helpful, but how can you help?
Nice. Yeah.
And so that's the whole thing. Like, when you're pitching a product, or when you're pitching, a meeting,
Yourself.
yourself, and that's whether it's a meeting or product, you're still pitching
Mhm.
yourself. The important thing is how can you give value to that? And anybody who's listening who wants to even be on podcasts, the one thing I would suggest is offer some value. How can you help the host? How can you help the network? Don't just make it like, hey, here's what allow me on your podcast. Well, why? What's in it for me? And that's not selfish to think like that. It's like, there are times we want to be helped. We want to have something that's in it for us. But at the same time, when you're asking for help or assistance in any capacity, or pitching yourself in any capacity, the one strategy I would always say is, what can you do for them?
Yes.
Because it's not. Otherwise, it just becomes one-sided. It becomes, okay, just give me, give me, give me.
Yeah. Yeah. And as I had mentioned before recording too, I think that's so important, especially when people are asking for raises or, like a promotion. They still need to share the value that they're bringing, what's in it for the organization or their manager,
Right.
etc. Yeah.
It's like, tell me, why are you worth the small, whatever raise it is, whether it's 1,000, 10,000 a year. What is it in it? What's in it for them? What's in it for the company?
Yeah.
And ideally, before you even ask for that, and I hope this kind of shouldn't really be said too much, that you should already be proving that you already give value. And that's the whole thing. Even when you're negotiating, even when you're going into negotiations, whether it's for salary or for um, or business, or any type of, what can you do?
Yeah.
And I think you'll be much more successful. Now, you may not always get the outcome you desire. It may not always go your way all the time, but if you offer value, and with the framework of always going into every interaction, how can I serve that? How can I serve them? So networking is going back to the whole thing, is networking is a very powerful strategy to overcome imposter syndrome and overcome self-doubt, because then you develop an accountability group, and now it's much more easier to step into that discomfort
Yeah.
of growing.
Yeah. So going back to that learning to be comfortable with uncomfortableness. Learning to be uncomfortably comfortable. However, we're going to say it. What are some ways that individuals can train themselves to be okay being uncomfortable?
Take small actions. I mean, I'm not talking about doing anything drastic, and definitely be smart with it. Like, I wouldn't say like, do something reckless. Don't be reckless about it either. But do something small. Yeah, one of my old trainers would run a public speaking 2-day boot camp, and it was like he marketed it like, really improve your confidence on stage. What he didn't tell people was that the first activity that you had to do was to go out in public and make a complete fool out of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was like near a mall. It's like, you're going to go to the mall. And he kind of told security beforehand what's going to happen. But you're going to the mall, and I want you to act really outlandish. And so, people would crawl on the ground and make noises, like really be absolutely ridiculous.
Uh-huh.
And to do that for like a half an hour. So by the time they returned, the idea of speaking in public was like a cakewalk.
I like that.
It was a cakewalk. And he said that really, of course, it was kind of like, he did give strategies about overcoming confidence, but he said that's the real value of that education. Because if they could do that, giving a speech in front of 50 to 100 people is going to be so easy.
Yeah.
And the whole thing about when you do something, and even if it works moderately, you get confident. You become more confident. Something that I used to, even prior to COVID, and what I used to do for my actors, it was fun, but it also was a great way to step outside our comfort zone. I used to host karaoke nights once every couple of months. I did like 3 or 4 a year. I would host a karaoke night. We'd all come together, my clients and friends, and we would just have a fun night. And I was even had another trainer who was kind of like talking about confidence and speaking. And the one thing he mentioned, he said to everybody, go do karaoke.
Mm.
And that makes a lot of sense because it's not easy to do it,
Mm-mm.
to get up and sing in front of strangers or even people and have fun with it. But the confidence that you'll receive afterwards will change. And it's something small, and it's something you can be having fun with that. And once you get used to doing that, like, okay, I did something uncomfortable today. It just happens over and over again. Also, there may never be a time where you're fully comfortable doing any. I was even hearing like people who are close to Tony Robbins, and now he spoke to in front of millions of people, thousands of stages in the past 40 years. He still gets nervous beforehand, and one of his rituals is before he goes on stage. Why he has a lot of energy is because he'll spend behind the stage. A lot of times, some people told me on a rebounder, like a trampoline, for 15 minutes, so that his adrenaline is pumping, using that combination with his nerves to just go out there and speak. Because that's one of his secrets. Is like, fear, he turns the fear into energy.
Yeah.
So they'll never, even if you have a little bit of anxiety about doing something, that's great. And we can reframe that as excitement. When somebody says, well, I'm nervous about going on stage, I'm nervous about going live. Well, what if we reframe that as excitement?
Yeah.
Because physiologically, excitement and nervousness are the same symptoms in the body. The heart beating, the butterflies in your stomach. So if we reframe that as excitement, you're excited to do this sale. You're excited to go live on social media. You're excited to do this presentation. And if you kind of like reframe your mind to do that, that's another strategy to kind of be okay with and being comfortable with discomfort by saying, "No, I'm really excited to do this."
Nice. Harness that nervous energy. Anything else before we get to your products and or services you want to share about strategies?
Well, it goes into networking, and I'll say this in this framework: proximity is power. So, what every entrepreneur, what every actor, what every performer, or again, anybody should be doing is networking and finding a crowd or a tribe that is going to elevate you, not do the opposite. So there's a popular saying that we probably all heard: "Show me your five friends, and I can tell you, I can tell you who you are." So the important thing is we all need to be networking, and with social media today, whether it's in person or virtual, LinkedIn very powerful. Every business person should be on LinkedIn. Every um, even actor, you all should be on LinkedIn because it's a very powerful networking tool. And start developing your circle of other high-powered business people because they'll elevate you. Because on the other hand, you could be around people that are negative and complaining, and they'll drain you at the same time. So why not do the opposite and have people empower you? So that would be like the real strategy that I would really say is our network is so important.
Absolutely.
So again, I also think I cannot stress the value of coaching.
Mm.
I think we can all benefit. I know some of my coaches have coaches. Try to invest. If you really can, invest in coaching. And somebody in your field, it doesn't really have to be in your field, but somebody who really can help you see things that your blind spots that you may not be able to see on your own.
Yeah.
And that can help you through it because, again, we have to elevate and level up. So
Nice. I love it. So many strategies, and I know people are going to want to learn more. So can you share a little bit about your products and or services, your book, how people can get a hold of you, etc.?
Well, definitely, I would say the first thing was check out my book, Rise Above the Script, Confronting Self-Doubt, Mastering Self-Sabotage for Performing Artists. And I want to also add a caveat to that. Although the book says for performing artists, there's a lot that can benefit anybody,
Right.
on this call. So there's a lot of actual strategies. Also connect with me on LinkedIn, Albert Bramante. I'd be happy to have conversations. Go to my website, like book a discovery call, and I would be happy to, speak with you for even 10 minutes if that's all. So also on my website, I have a bunch of meditative recordings that you can buy that are very inexpensive. You can listen over and over again with your headphones and in a relaxed state. And it's for any topics from leadership to public speaking to athletic performance to addictions to sleep and general health. So I would encourage you to go to my website, book a call, or follow me on LinkedIn.
Awesome. And that's albertbramante.com.
Yes.
Yes. We'll put that in the show notes.
And you can just search for me on LinkedIn. I have Albert Bramante, so I'm very easy to find.
Excellent. All right. What is your final piece of advice?
My final piece of advice is to just take action. Someday, I hear a lot of people say this in conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Someday I'm going to write the book, or someday I'm going to start this business. Today. Start today. Start small. Come up with strategies. Start brainstorming. 5-10 strategies. What do you need to start? And start tackling them. But take action today because someday it doesn't exist.
I love it. Thank you for joining us today, Albert.
Thank you for having me, Christina, and really happy to be here.
Transform your organization with Eanes Training. Our premier interpersonal skills training programs are tailored to enhance your organization's employees in communication, emotional intelligence, leadership, and more. We have a catalog of expert-led courses designed to meet the dynamic needs of today's workforce. With highly engaging in-person, hybrid, and remote sessions, we can help elevate your organization's performance and success. Learn more at eanestraining.com. Thank you for tuning in to the Essential Skills for Humaning podcast. We hope you've gained valuable insights to enhance your journey as a human being. Remember, practice makes progress. Keep honing those essential skills, and until next time, keep being the best version of yourself. For more resources, visit eanestraining.com.